Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching. Tonight, Highbury Canco workers are on strike. Plus, another move that could impact the downtown drug consumption site. We will bring you the latest on council. A healthcare deal has been reached. It means billions more in funding across the country over the next decade. And these warmer temperatures mean this Coast Guard ship has been docked a lot instead of breaking ice. We'll talk about environmental implications. Let's start tonight in Leamington. Hundreds of union workers at the Highbury Canco factory are off the job right now, striking after contract negotiations broke down last month. TJ Deere spoke with workers picketing outside the factory who voiced their concerns.
These workers would normally be inside, canning products such as tomato paste and pasta sauce. Instead, they're on the streets. Highbury Canco workers that are part of UFCW Local 175 started picketing at 12:01 this morning, 2 days after workers rejected the company's only offer.
We're definitely disappointed they did not match the union's recommended settlement. That would have definitely went through.
The union says in November, the 405 full-time workers voted 99.9% in favor of a strike mandate. The union's workers have been without a contract since January the 1st. The two sides met on 3 separate days but reached an impasse on January 23rd. According to the union's chief steward, the workers make less than $19 an hour and they're mainly looking for a wage increase.
What's really required is to cover cost of living. Gasoline prices are out of line. The corporate greed causing this is out of line. They're trying to make up from COVID, and we the bunch of employees need to pay our bills. End of story.
Although Jackson would not say a specific number, one of the workers on the line said exactly what he was looking for.
I'm looking for $3 now and 50 cents per year for the next 4 years. That's the contract I want for me and my people that work hard for this company.
Highbury Canco president and CEO Sam Diab told CBC News he was surprised about the outcome after the increases the company put on the table.
We're certainly eager to resume business as usual, and most importantly right now is making sure that this is going to get reconciled and things are going to kind of move forward at some point. We have no meeting scheduled with the union from a negotiations perspective, and frankly, I'm not expecting any in the near future.
Jackson also said they're willing to go back to the bargaining table, but no meetings are currently scheduled. Until a deal is reached, workers are willing to picket outside the factory 24 hours a day. TJ Deere, CBC News, Leamington.
To international news now. The CBC's Briar Stewart was there on Friday when a woman was rescued from the quake rubble in southeastern Turkey. The 37-year-old woman is now recovering from the ordeal of being trapped under her apartment building for days. Briar went to see her, and here's that story.
Inside this hospital room, we meet Özlem Ayna and her mother Gülten. The 37-year-old is recovering after spending more than 100 hours trapped underneath all of this.
Can you tell me about the moment you heard the rescuers looking for you?
It was incredible, she says. He told me to hold his hand. So I squeezed his hand so hard, he told me, "Calm down, we will save you." When the 7.8 magnitude earthquake violently struck southeast Turkey, she woke up to a wardrobe falling on top of her and the building crashing down around her first-floor apartment. In the debris outside, her keepsake box, which was thrown out of her room. I was screaming so loud, she said, my voice went hoarse, so sometimes I lost hope. Shaking uncontrollably from the cold, her mouth was so dry she couldn't swallow. She could hear the rescuers, but they couldn't hear her. She started banging on the stone and concrete, and this is when they knew she was there, and they worked for hours to reach her. A team from Burnaby, BC helped by providing equipment like a camera to find her exact location.
What about that moment when they finally pulled you out of that building?
When they pulled me out, I look at their eyes. They were almost crying.
On the ground, the crowd cheered, but Özlem's mother still didn't believe her daughter was alive until she saw her in the hospital.
Kızım yeniden doğdu, bebeğim.
My daughter was born again, she said. Özlem is bruised and has some kidney damage from being so dehydrated.
Zaten böbrek fonksiyonlarını iyice kaybetmiş olacaktı.
If they didn't save her in the next couple of hours, we'd think she could have lost all of her kidney function, says the nurse, but she's doing well. Her family is so happy, they feel grateful for everyone.
Thank you.
Özlem is thankful for her rescuers, but describes a feeling of broken happiness. 80% of those living in her building were killed. She was only one of a few to survive. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Diyarbakir, Turkey.
Back to local news now. Within the last few hours, Windsor Council has decided it needs more financial information before moving forward with a plan for a supervised drug consumption site. Councillor Joanne Geniak moved the motion, asking for administration and the health unit to figure out how much money it would take to run the site. Geniak said it isn't clear if the province would actually be funding 70% of the operating costs, as that decision is still pending. Several councillors opposed the motion, saying this would delay the project. Earlier this month, the Health Unit Board approved a plan to open the current approved site at Wyandotte and Goyo as early as next month. However, they agreed to look for another permanent site after people complained about the location. Council could hear the answers around cost as early as the next meeting and no later than April 3rd. A Windsor police officer has been charged with impaired driving for a second time in 4 months. In both instances, the constable was off duty when he was arrested and charged. Most recently, police in Chatham-Kent pulled him over 1 in the morning on Saturday. The Windsor Police Service says the officer has been suspended. Back on October 3rd, the officer was charged with impaired driving after hitting a parked car in downtown Windsor. And after that incident, he had been reassigned to administrative duties. The man has been a police officer for more than 20 years. Some hope and a bit of movement in the town of Wheatley. It's been a year and a half since an explosion rocked the downtown core. A section still remains fenced off. Now residents wonder what will come next as the municipality of Chatham-Kent plans to purchase 11 properties within the evacuation zone.
As far as I know, they're tearing most of it down, but when they're going to do that, it would be nice if they would think about it and start rebuilding. We would like our little town back in some way.
I think we deserve to be put back the way we were. We need restaurants. We need, places for people to live. We need to get going, move forward with this.
We're feeling that it's going to take a long time before our town gets back to normal. The impact that this has on our business with the way our town looks right now is very detrimental. We have no restaurants in town, so our business in the evenings is non-existent because nobody's coming. There's nothing for them to come uptown for. We've lived here our whole lives, so for us, this is a huge, huge loss for our community. And to see all those buildings come down, that's our heritage, that's our history. If you take away that commercial property, where are other people supposed to relocate for businesses? There's very limited commercial property available in town. So we're really concerned about that. What is going to happen over there? What are they tearing the buildings down? We haven't heard what the plan is yet. We're hopeful that Chatham-Kent comes through and helps everybody out. I think we have the potential to rebuild and redefine our community, but I think that's going to take a long time. People are not willing to invest right now because nobody knows what the future holds.
Manitoba Premier Heather Stephenson says the premiers have agreed to accept the healthcare funding deal offered to them by Ottawa. Last week, the federal government said it would increase the amount it transferred to provinces and territories. It amounted in total to about $46 billion in new funding over a 10-year period. Rafi Bujikanian reports.
The day started with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pressing his charm offensive in the Yukon while he tried to push his healthcare deal to provinces and territories.
We know how much of a priority that is for Canadians.
But the bigger conversation about the issue didn't involve him. It was the provincial and territorial premiers speaking together about what's on offer from Ottawa. $196 billion over the next decade, $46.2 billion of that in new money, far short of the Premier's ask. But today,
we will be accepting the money from the federal government, but also recognizing that this does not represent what is a long-term funding need for our healthcare systems across the country. We've accepted this for now, but we will move on to the bilateral agreements.
No point in dragging the feet. We're just interested in moving forward and getting on with making the investments in healthcare that will make healthcare more accessible for Nova Scotians and for Canadians.
Federal ministers met Tim Houston today. Those side deals a big focus.
We spoke about what matters to Nova Scotians, greater access to family medicine, reducing backlogs. We believe that there is a great momentum to come to agreements in principle quite quickly.
But with budgets from the federal government and provinces and territories around the corner, time is a factor to sign those individual deals in the coming days. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
This winter has been pretty mild, which means the Detroit River hasn't been very icy. As the CBC's Dale Molinar tells us, it's good for some business, but can have negative environmental impacts.
All winter, area waterways have been practically ice-free. That's great for shipping. Local businesses can move commodities much easier, such as salt and grains. The Port Authority says it benefits ADM Agri-Industries in West Windsor.
They have ships on site, and so they use them for on-water storage. So basically, we have 3 ships sitting out there, and they shuffle them around. And without ice, that makes it much easier for them. Otherwise, we have to wait for ice conditions and/or get an icebreaker in.
And the truck ferry moves across much smoother, carrying components for the Gordie Howe Bridge.
And we can't stop that.
But Salmon says the lack of ice doesn't increase the volume of goods being shipped. That's because most ships are docked for winter maintenance and the locks are closed anyway.
We can't plan that and anticipate there's going to be a February like we're having.
So back here, this is a working station for the navigation officers.
Back in 2004, the Canadian Coast Guard icebreaker Samuel Risley was involved in the recovery of the passenger plane that crashed at Pelee Island. There was a lot of ice that year. Without much ice this year, the crew has been spending a lot of time doing maintenance and training while docked in Windsor.
It's an unusually mild year. We had that big freeze up at Christmas time where we were quite busy, but since then it's been pretty quiet.
The crew also helps the Great Lakes Institute for Environmental Research at the University of Windsor collect water samples during the winter months. That has helped the Institute find out more about plankton plant growth, but the lack of ice also may affect fish populations.
For those fish that might spawn in the fall, they actually depend on ice cover for protection for the eggs as they overwinter. When there's no ice cover, we lose that protection.
And the CAO of the Essex Region Conservation Authority says lack of the ice means shorelines aren't as protected, as open water will erode them.
We are highly vulnerable right now to wave activity and damaging winter winds. Fortunately, though, our levels are somewhat lower than what we've gone through for the past 5 or 6 years.
Tim Burney says they won't know how the lack of ice cover this winter will affect the lake levels in spring and summer until they see what kind of runoff they get from the tributaries and how much water comes from the upper Great Lakes. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
The Canadian Armed Forces are leading the effort to recover the unknown object shot down over the Yukon on Saturday. It's one of 3 objects detected flying over North America in as many days. Earlier this month, a suspected Chinese surveillance balloon drifted over Canada and the U.S. before it was shot down. Catherine Cullen reports.
The Yukon weather the Prime Minister is experiencing firsthand also makes for a challenging search.
This is a very serious situation that we are taking incredibly seriously. The importance of defending our territorial integrity, our sovereignty, has rarely been as important as it is now.
It's been 9 days since the United States shot down an object it identified as a Chinese surveillance balloon. It fell into the waters off the coast of South Carolina. Then, in the last 3 days, 3 more objects were shot down. Canada is handling the recovery effort in the Yukon.
Obviously, there is some sort of pattern in there. The fact that we are seeing this in a significant degree over the past week is a cause for interest and close attention.
American officials say that since that Chinese balloon was detected, they've adjusted their radar.
one of the reasons that we think we're seeing more is because we're looking for more.
But they are distinguishing these latest objects from the first, saying it doesn't appear that they were transmitting information or moving under their own power.
We know the first one was Chinese. They admitted it. They claimed it was a weather balloon. We know it's not. These three, we don't have attribution for right now. We don't know who owns them. So I'm not going to take anybody's word at face value here.
In Parliament, there's pushback over whether Canada is prepared for foreign threats.
This government has failed to counter foreign interference, failed to stop funding of Beijing's military research, failed to upgrade NORAD's early warning system, and failed to acquire modern fighter jets. Does the government now understand how vulnerable this country is?
The government says yes.
Canada has acted and will continue to act swiftly and decisively to protect our safety and our sovereignty.
The Canadian Armed Forces and RCMP are searching for the object in the Yukon, but no one in Canada or the U.S. can say when any of these three latest objects might be recovered. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
And talk of all these objects flying around has some in our region remembering something that happened closer to home in 2009. An American company equipped a massive balloon with $1 million camera. And the goal was to one day keep an eye on things like gun smugglers and oil spills near Sarnia. But not everyone thought it was a good idea 14 years ago.
I think it's a little bit ridiculous. You know, it's down today. It costs $1 million for them to build this camera, allegedly. It can read the name on a ship from 9 miles away. Why do they need that technology?
They don't understand the bigger issue. It's about our privacy here. It's about respect for Canadian sovereignty.
Don't call it a comeback. She never went away. Here is Rihanna's halftime blowout, her first time back on stage in 6 whole years. She played a packed set list. Only Girl, We Found Love, Work, Umbrella. But there's one more thing that has everyone talking because Rihanna was showing off that baby bump the whole way through. Her reps confirmed it after the show. Rihanna is indeed pregnant with her second baby, so fans may have to keep waiting on a new album. But they still got an unforgettable halftime show. So here's some more as we head into our commercial break. And stay with us. Your full weather forecast is coming right up. Now, if you were glued to your TV watching last night's Super Bowl game, you might have missed another big game, the Puppy Bowl. I want to see if we have this viz here. There we go. The 19th annual contest saw Team Fluff take on Team Rough, and it was historic. Colette is with us watching this because, I mean, you love puppies, you love the Super Bowl, and this happened for the first time ever, this contest went into overtime, and the game was knotted at 8-all at the end of regulation, but in the end, Team Fluff hoisted the trophy. And this year's event featured 122 adorable puppies selected from 67 animal shelters and rescue centers across the country, which I know is a near and dear cause for you, Colette Kennedy.
Yeah, and I'm so happy to see this because I normally watch this every year and I didn't get to see it. I don't know if you saw that tackle in there, but it had to be rough taking down Fluff. There was a really good tackle.
Hopefully no injuries, everyone's okay.
Yeah, I think they did okay. I love that. I love how they, even if you don't like football, I actually do, but if you don't, I mean, come on, how great is that? All right, let's, I think most, okay, I shouldn't say that, not most, but a lot of folks like the mild temperatures as well, something to like when you're getting this little treat in the middle of February. So normal highs, check this out, more than 10 degrees above normal in terms of our daytime high and what a normal high is. The lows, okay, a little bit closer, but obviously very mild overnight lows that we're experiencing as well. It'll be a little cooler overnight tonight than what we experienced last night. So there are some changes coming, but essentially the next several days are mild until we get kind of closer to the end of the week. So this is going to keep on going here. Daytime temperatures, so some of the other highs, just showing you some other double digits. Chatham, Kent at 10, got very close there. Sarnia up to 9 degrees. And the winds were part of the story here. Generally, those westerly winds kind of help to push those temperatures up. Mostly clear conditions through the overnight. There was a little bit of activity along the frontal boundary here off towards the east, but it was even kind of weakening as it was pushing towards the north shore of Lake Ontario, so not much left of that even for eastern Ontario. And you see the nicer conditions through the overnight tonight. It is going to allow for that temperature to drop a little bit more. But taking you through Tuesday, Valentine's Day, things looking pretty good. We get into a little more cloud cover late in the day, and I'm sure you're noticing this massive rain with this next system that will move through, but it's going to hold off till overnight Tuesday and then into Wednesday morning. So we will see some showers turning into times perhaps a few bouts of rainfall, but then even that works its way through. And then we'll get into hopefully some clearing later Wednesday, because that's actually going to be the mildest day. Now, it is going to be breezy, and that's going to be something that's going to be coming up a lot this week, are getting into some windy conditions, really windy from the south as we go into Wednesday, and then we're going to find again towards the end of the week as well. So these overnight temperatures, you can see Leamington, okay, that might be a little bit extreme. Perhaps we're not going quite to -5, but close in that vicinity is what I'm expecting. For tomorrow, 9 degrees, I have us at for the daytime high. Now, the records tend to be into the double digits, so that's not necessarily likely, although I think somewhere in the province, well, multiple areas will likely see some records being broken. Even on Wednesday, it'll be, we have a shot at it, but it'll take something to break anything. But 14, okay, come on. Thursday, 7 degrees, and then there's that push of cold air when we get into strong northwesterly winds, Katarina, at the end of the week.
Before I go, Colette, I got to give you a moment to rave about your team winning the Super Bowl.
Yes, my Kansas City Chiefs. For those who, our viewers who don't know, I grew up in Kansas, and so that was my team always growing up. It's been my team for ages. So excited.
Congrats to the team and congrats to you, Colette.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. When we come back, some updates on new flights out of Windsor. Stay with us. There's rising concern over the ongoing outbreak of avian flu in this country and its spread to animals other than birds. A highly contagious and deadly form of bird flu has been hitting farms across the country as well as wild bird populations. And what has researchers even more concerned is a recent jump from birds to mammals. The Journal of American Medicine reports that a recent outbreak on a mink farm in Spain could be the first case of mammal-to-mammal transmission. And that has scientists warning that avian flu could jump to humans as well. Rescue crews pulled 2 people alive from the rubble after an explosion this morning in Ottawa. That happened in a new housing development in the east part of the city.
All of a sudden, you heard the boom and my entire house shook. Like it felt like something hit my house.
A door camera captured the moment of the blast. 5 people were treated in hospital and several homes destroyed. Firefighters say the explosion was caused by a gas leak. And Flair Airlines has announced it's adding a new route out of Windsor's airport. The low-cost airline will soon fly to Vancouver starting June 10th, and it'll run Wednesdays and Saturdays. One-way tickets starting at $49, including taxes and fees. Currently, Flair Airlines flies from Windsor to Halifax and Tucson, Arizona, though it did recently drop its services to and from Montreal. And that is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.